Hi, I'm Kelly from Kelly Jones Jewellery. I posted this on Facebook this week and so many of you asked for the tutorial I thought I would. So this week I've made it in copper. I've added a few extra wires and I made it with a little moonstone and a cubic zirconia. It's very similar. On this one I was using sterling silver square wire, but on the video I've used copper round wire. You can use whatever you like really. I've put a list in the description below of everything I've used to make that pendant there, the copper one. And you can make it slightly bigger if you want to, just adjust your wire lengths and your weave repeats. You could also make it into earrings if you wanted to. You could do one going one way and then do the other one and try and reverse the flow to go the other way. Maybe I'll do that in my next video. So I've put a link to my Facebook page and my Instagram. I'll put those below. I'll put them on the screen as well. And I do sell all my finished pendants that I make on my videos in my shop. And you'll also find PDF tutorials there. Those are written tutorials with lots and lots of pictures to follow along in your own time. So please check those out on my shop, which is kellyjonesjewellery.com. To make this pendant you'll need 0.8mm wire, that's 20 gauge, and I've got 4 lengths at 9 inches, that's 23 centimetres, and 1 length at 7 inches, that's 18 centimetres. You need 0.315mm weaving wire, which is 28 gauge, and I've cut approximately 200 centimetres. You can go a step either way with these wire measurements, they're just a rough guide, and I've wound my weaving wire onto one of these little bobbins. If you've got a bobbin, fantastic. If not, don't worry about it. You can cut lengths as you go. I'll put a link to where I buy my bobbins in the description below. Now these stones, I've got a little round cabochon, that's a flat back. You can use an oval one if you like. Mine's 10mm, but you can use a slightly different size if you like. Just adjust your wire lengths a little and your weave repeats a little as you go. The little accent stone, I'm using a cubic zirconia. Mine's 5mm, so that's got a little pointy back. You can use a little flat backed one if you like, so you can use a tiny cabochon if you want to. And I've got a little 3mm bead. Tools, I've got my long nose pliers, I've got my round nose pliers, my wire cutters, nylon pliers. If you don't have nylon pliers, don't worry, I'll just use these for flattening the weaves, straightening the wires, but you can just use your fingers if you like. And my tools, I've put links to all my tools in the description below, and they are affiliate links, so if you're thinking about buying tools, please buy through my links. I'm aware a couple of the links aren't working at the moment. I'm using Tronex at the minute as well, but purely because they last longer. I seem to kill all the other tools, and you buy the cheaper ones, they don't seem to last 5 minutes. So take your 4 lengths of wire, the 9-inch lengths. The shorter one is for wrapping the little accent stone, so we'll use that later. And roughly find the centre point. So put your thumb in the centre, and we're going to work just to the left of your thumb. And take your weaving wire. We're going to start with 3 wraps around that bottom wire. So we'll go twice around the bottom 2 wires. Up between those 2 wires. Twice around the next 2 wires. Up between those 2 wires, and we'll go twice around the top 2 wires. So then come up between the bottom 2, and we'll go twice around those middle 2 wires again. Under the bottom wire, over the second, we'll go twice around those bottom 2 wires. So we'll do that weave again. So I've done that weave again. If you're using a bigger stone, then you could do a few more repeats. I'm just going to finish that with 3 wraps around that bottom wire. And keep pushing your weave together. I'm going to cut that weaving wire at both ends. Flatten down those end wires. So grab your weave in the middle. We're going to bend those wires into a V. And the V needs to sit at the bottom of the stone, and we need a gap at the bottom of the stone. So I'm just going to bend that at a bit more of an angle. So you've got a nice gap at the bottom of the stone there. And then holding that in place, I'm going to carefully wrap the wire around the stone, and I want a gap at the top as well. Try not to let the wires cross over each other on the sides. And where the wires meet at the top, I'm going to bend those out. So that's the shape that you're aiming for. So you've got a gap at the bottom and at the top, and we've bent the wires out at the top. So I've taken my stone out, and you've got to make sure all your wires at the top aren't crossing over each other. And take your weaving wire, and I'm going to wrap 3 times around this back wire, just to attach. I'm going to slide that down to just where all the wires meet together, and I'm going to wrap around the whole thing. About 5-6 times, something like that. Then I want this back wire again. I'm going to make sure you've pulled it pretty tight, and I'm going to wrap 3 times around that back wire again. I'm going to cut that wire from the beginning. Flatten that down. We'll leave the weaving wire attached for now. So take your stone, and this works if you're using an oval stone as well. Just make sure you've got a gap at the top and the bottom, because that's where we're going to attach our wires in a bit. I always start at the back, and then if you do mess it up a bit, you're alright, you can't see it too much. Spread the wires out on the sides. This bit is a bit fiddly because the stone doesn't want to stay there at the minute. I'm going to grab the wire sort of where the stone sits more towards the bottom, and I'm just going to, holding it steady at the top, I'm just going to bend it in at the bottom of the stone there. Do the same for the other side. I'm holding it in place at the top with my thumb so the top doesn't move too much. Grab the bottom, sort of towards the bottom of the stone. I'm going to bend it in. It's come in a bit at the top there, so I'll pull that back out. I'm just pushing the wires together now at the bottom in case they've moved. So that's the back, that will hold it in. So now to the front of the piece, and because we've had a little practice on the back, the front should be a little bit tidier. Spread your wires out again so you can get the pliers around them. And I'm going to grab the wire just at the bottom of the stone there and just bend it in a little bit and holding it at the top again so it doesn't move too much. Do the same for the other side. Pressing it all together, squeezing it at the top and the bottom a little bit. So now we've got to sort our wires out at the back. Pull the back two straight up. I said at the back, I mean at the top. We'll just bend these out the way for now. We'll deal with those in a minute. So take your weaving wire and we're just going to weave over these two. So I'm just going to do 3 wraps around the one. And then 3 wraps around both wires. And we'll repeat that, 3 wraps around the bottom wire, 3 wraps around both wires, and we'll need about 8 or 10 repeats of that. So I've done 10 repeats of that weave. And I'm just going to bend it around using my fingers. And I'm going to bend the bottom out. So then where it meets, I'm going to take the weaving wire and I'm going to go around the whole thing. So you want to pull it together nice and tight. And then go around the whole thing a few times. And finish off wrapping around one of those back wires. So I'm going to cut off that weaving wire. I'm going to cut these 2 wires as well. Flattening that end down. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers and just curl these 2 wires out the way. Hard to do this in such a confined space. Just going to curl it out the way. Put a little curl on it so it doesn't come undone. That'll hold everything together. Try and match them up a bit. So we need to spread out what wires we've got left. So we should have 6 wires now, all standing up. So put this to one side for now, and go and find your little stone and the shorter length of wire that we put to one side earlier. So position your stone roughly in the middle of the wire. And this is very fiddly to do, and I've done this on a few of my other videos. It's worth persisting with because it's nice to add little stones to your wires. So hold it in the middle of the wire. If you're using a flat backed or a cubic zirconia with a pointy back, either way is fine. And then wrap your wire really tight around that stone. So one wire goes to the back and one wire goes to the front. And keep taking the wire around the stone. Focusing on the front wire at the minute. Oh, I'm going to lose it. And now I'm going to take the wire over the front of the stone. Try and hold it in a bit better. My back wire's gone all over the place there, so I'll have to fix that now. But that's how I want my front wire to sit. Now the back wire needs to come tight around the stone. Because I've got a pointy back, it's going to hold it in like that so it's gone a bit tighter in the coil. Do you want to finish so you've got one wire coming out one side and one coming out the other ideally. And like I say, this is worth persisting with, and it is very fiddly. Because if you can get it nice and tidy, you can add these little stones to any of your pieces. So keep messing and bending and playing with the wires until you get it how you want it to sit and it holds it nice and securely. If you've got a flat backed, do what I did on the front, wrap it around a few times and then bring it over the edge of the stone. Easier with a pointy back because you can just go tighter and tighter around it, but don't do too many. If you do too many, then this ends up too thick. 3's ideal really, 3 wraps around it, but it's up to you. You can do whatever you like with it, it's your work. So then when you're happy with it and you've got roughly one coming out of each side, I was going to bend the wires but I won't, because we're adding it to a pendant, aren't we? So we're going to add this to our pendant here. Yeah, I'm going to bend those wires. Sometimes it makes it easier just to attach it. So I'm grabbing the wire just over the edge there really, and I'm going to bend it to the back like that. So it goes to the back. Because once you've got this on the pendant, you want to move these wires as least as possible, otherwise you could loosen it to come out. So again, grab the wire just to the side of it, bend it to the back. I'm going to take these wires and take them around the side wires of the pendant to attach it. Easier said than done, I think. So try and hold it in position at the front if you can. I haven't really got much space at the front. I'm going to wrap that around the best I can without misshaping it too much. Do the same for the other side. Wrap it around the top, the pendant, so go above the stone. And try not to misshape it too much. So we've wrapped around these 3 wires on this side with this one, and the same with the other. I've just gone around it once on that side and then fiddled with it until it's in the middle where I want it to be. And I like to have a bit of handling length on my wires, so that's why the wires seem a little bit longer. So I'm going to cut that off quite short and just wrap it around the back again, and I'll do the same for the other one. And then just wrap those back around inside of there. And then squeeze it tight to the wires to hold it firmly in place. So you spread your wires out roughly so they're all kind of just lying next to each other. We're going to leave 3 on this side for a minute. We're going to leave the 1 on this outer side for a minute. We're going to focus on these 2. So take your weaving wire and we'll start with 3 wraps around that bottom wire, so just working on those 2. And then we'll go 3 wraps around both wires. And we'll repeat that 8 times. 3 wraps around the bottom wire, 3 wraps around both wires, 8 times. So I got a bit carried away and did 9 repeats. I'm going to cut that weaving wire off from the beginning. I'm going to take this weave, I'm bending it over to the right to start with. We're going to bend it around. So I'm holding the bottom in place with my thumb and bending the rest around. Bending it around to the left. I'm going to bend it all the way around. Like that. Now we're going to do a slightly different weave across these 2 wires. And we want these wires to scoop around towards the bottom of the stone like that. So very carefully shape your wires and take your time so you get it how you want it to look. Take your weaving wire, we'll go straight over the other side to the top wire. We wrap around that wire 3 times. Then we'll come over the bottom wire and wrap around that wire 3 times. So we'll go 3 times around one wire, over the other wire, 3 times around that wire. And because we've already shaped our wires now, we don't want to misshape them, so try not to pull the wires together as you're working. So now I'm going over the opposite wire, and I'll go around that 3 times. Sorry. Keep pushing it together as you go, over the opposite wire, and around that wire 3 times. So as you go around this angle, we've got more wire here to cover than this little bit of wire here to cover here as we work in. So we need to add more wraps around the top part and fewer wraps around the inner wire. So we'll go 5 wraps around the top wire just when you're going around this bend. So that's 3, 4, 5. And then come over to the inner wire and we'll go 2, just 2 wraps around that one, and then 5 wraps again around that top wire. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 wraps around that inner wire. So we'll do that to get around the top, and then we'll go back to the 3s again until we reach the bottom of this little pendant. So I've completed that little weave, bringing them together at the bottom. And I went back to 3s as soon as they were sort of next to each other, the wires, after I'd gone around that bend. So you can see as you come around the bend, the zigzags kind of space out a bit because we've added more wraps on this one wire. Hope that makes sense. So now I've carried on until my wires have just got past the bottom of the pendant there. I'm going to cut that wire. Flatten it down a bit. And holding the front of the wires in place there, holding them in shape, I'm going to bend this to go through. I can feel it misshaping a little bit, through to the back. So I'm going to take this wire, I'm going to scoop it around to follow the weave, and I'm going to take it to the back. I'm going to cut that short and wrap it around those 3 wires at the back there. Holding it in place at the front so I don't misshape it. I'm going to send that wire around those 3 and then squeeze it in place with my pliers. Taking the next wire, I'm going to pull that away just a little bit for now, just so I can get behind it. I'm gonna scoop it first, I think, and then I'm gonna push it behind it, because I want this wire to follow around as well. Like that. And then I want it to go around to follow the shape of things. I'm going to do the same with the next wire as well. Push that one to the back. Scoop it around first and then push it to the back a bit. And I want that to follow too. Shaping these wires just takes practice. So if you just take your time and do it really slowly, and the more you do, the more natural it'll feel to you and the better you'll be at shaping them. And you'll learn your own way of how you want the wires to look. So I want them to both come around at the top. Then I want them to separate here. So one follows the weave and one follows the stone. You can do whatever you like with the wires at this point. You can add little beads. You can add coils with your weaving wire if you want to. Make it a bit different. The way I've done this, I need to strengthen all the wires together here because this is going to keep moving around. So I'm going to add weaving wire to that part to hold everything together. I can just find my weaving wire. So I'm going to attach 3 times to one of the wires. Slide it around to where I want it to be, which is, I think, just below where that stone is there. And then I'll go around both of the wires. A few times. That's Gracie just waking up. Then I'll go around this single wire again, and I need to attach it to the weave as well. So I'm going to cut that weaving wire, but I'm going to leave just a little length so I can attach it to the weave. Cut that wire from the beginning as well. So I'm going to post this through around the back of that weave. And I'm going to attach that to a wire at the back. I'm just going to wrap 3 times around this back wire. So I've wrapped 3 times around that back wire, and I'll cut it off, flatten it down, to hold those wires down. And then I'm going to take this top wire straight around to the back, holding it in place at the front. And the bottom wire I'm going to post down there. So trying not to misshape it too much. I'm going to post it down above the weave, and I'm holding it where it goes around the stone so I don't spoil the shape at the top. have spoilt the shape a little bit. That's it. And then that wire I'm going to bring over to the front and pull across like that. And then these two wires are going to go around again just to secure and hold in place. So holding the weave very firmly in place. I'm going to pop these two wires back around, pull them firmly, and I can just cut them off and squeeze them to the weave then. Before I cut them off, I'm just going to squeeze them to the weave, just so that they're tidy. And then I'm going to cut them quite short at the back. So to finish off a few wires, if we look at this one that goes around the stone to the back there, if you've got space you can pop it around those three and just pinch it tight there. If not, you can wrap it around this back wire. So I'm lifting it just to make a little gap there. So I'm going to cut it shorter. Making sure I've got a gap where I'm going to post it through. And I'll just grab the wire, holding it firmly on the side so that we're not going to misshape the front of it. I'm just going to wrap it around that wire. Squeeze it into place so that's all secure, and it's still where I want it to be. This bottom wire, I've scooped that down and I'm going to cut that one. I do just guess where I'm going to cut them for the curls. And then as I go to curl them, I'll think that's a little bit too long and take a little bit more off. So just want a little curl at the bottom there. So I'm going to curl this around this way. You may notice I have broken a few nails. I do break nails just like everybody else. I try and keep them nice, but it doesn't always happen. So I've got a little curl there at the front. And this gap here at the bottom, that's what my 3mm bead's for. I'm just going to pop it in there. I'll do that in just a minute. And then this last wire at the top, because you can add as many beads as you like. You can do whatever you like with all these remaining wires. I'm just going to pull that around to follow the flow of everything, but this time it goes to the back. Not very straight. So that's how I want it to look at the front. And at the back I need to attach it to something, or I can just curl it and tie it to something. There are loads of options of ways of attaching. I could now pull this wire out and wrap it around this side like I did with that one. I could try and go around 3 wires if you've got the space, or you can just curl it and attach it to something. Need a little bit of weaving wire. Wrap 3 times around the wire to attach it. I always use 28 gauge weaving wire. You can use a slightly thicker one if you want to. Lots of people ask why I use the thinner gauge, and I think it just makes it a bit easier. I think if you're using the thicker wire, you'll have more strength in your finished piece. But I love the fine weaves, and I love how easy it is to weave with the thinner wire. Right from when I started, I preferred the 28 gauge, which is a 0.315mm wire, but that's just me. So I'm going to go around both of the wires a couple of times, tie it to that wire there. And you can use a slightly thicker base wire as well if you want. I use the 0.8. You can use a 1mm if you like. I just find the 0.8 is a bit easier on your hands and your nails. So push that together. So I've gone 3 times around the single wire as well. So I've tied it to there. So I'm going to pull my weaving wire nice and tight. Chop that off. Get rid of any sharp ends. We're just pressing it around. I'm going to cut that quite short and just put a little curl on that, and that'll hold it all nice in place. So I'm holding it at the base, and I've grabbed the tip with the round nose pliers. Just pull it round into a little curl. It holds it all together. Little curl on the back. And it does get easier the more you do, and the more pendants that you make. You learn more about shaping the wires, and I think it's best just not to rush what you're doing. Just take your time with it. If you try and correct your wire after you've bent it, it tends to not do what you want it to do as well. Because as the more you bend the wires, it's like the harder the wire gets. So I'll just add that little bead to the bottom now. So take a short length of weaving wire and pop your little bead onto it. And position it roughly in the middle. And I'm going to post both those wires through the middle at the bottom of the stone there. So I'm just going to tie that bead there. You can put beads anywhere you like. I'm just trying to fill that little gap at the bottom there. You can keep the gap if you like. You can put beads anywhere you want at all. I find it's a lovely little addition. And I'm just going to attach these wires around those 2 back wires on the back there. So I've wrapped the one around this back wire here, and I've wrapped the other one around that bottom wire of the weave. Cut both of those off. Cut them off so they finish inside, and then flatten down those sharp edges. And we're done. This is a sterling silver one I made earlier. So I put this one online, and so many people asked for it, I thought I'd have to have a go and see if I could make it again. Please mention me when sharing your work online, a Kelly Jones jewellery design, and please don't show images of the back or in progress images. I'd prefer the people came and watch my videos to see how it's done. I do mean to say this on all of my videos for my work, but I do forget sometimes. So please mention me. Thanks everybody. I hope you found this tutorial easy to follow. I haven't confused you too much. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I am going to be doing a big giveaway soon. Thanks everybody, see you in the next video. Bye. I just want to let you know that I've recently finished a PDF tutorial on this huge frame pendant. A PDF tutorial is a download from my Etsy shop, and it's got loads and loads of pictures and descriptions, so you go through at it. You go through it in your own time, at your own pace, and it's all there. It's fully descriptive, it's written for a beginner. Obviously you'd have to be an advanced beginner to make this. It's not as complicated as it looks. So just to let you know, that is now available in my Etsy shop.